Good morning. Thank you all for coming. I'm Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General of the State of New York. And with me here this morning are Congressman José Serrano, a longtime friend and ally in many causes, and our city's terrific new police commissioner, new and old, but terrific in all respects, and another ally in many causes. We also are joined, and I'm very grateful for their participation. We're joined by Paul Boken, whose daughter Megan was killed by two robbers out to steal her smartphone, and by Megan's sister, Annie Peloso. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your courage in being leaders in the effort to organize the Secure Our Smartphones initiative. Finally, Richard Aborn, the president of the Citizens Crime Commission, who I've known for a very long time, and Richard was there at the beginning of the Secure Our Smartphones initiative and has been a terrific ally and partner in this effort. So we're here today, ladies and gentlemen, in our ongoing effort to force the manufacturers of smartphones to do the right thing. And this is not a very complicated problem, but it requires organizing and it requires advocacy, and ultimately, if that doesn't work, it will require legislation to solve. While most types of property crimes across America have been falling, we've seen a sharp increase in the number of thefts of smartphones, and this is so common the crime has its own name. They call it apple picking. Today in the United States, 1 in 3 robberies and thefts involves a smartphone, and these crimes are often accompanied by violence. People are assaulted and in more than a few cases killed for their smartphones. The reason for this crime wave is very simple. It's economically a winner for several levels of criminal activity. The thieves can grab the phones. They're easy to steal. They are easy to clean. They call it jailbreaking, to remove all of the information. And then they're incredibly easy to fence. They're very easy to resell. There are very sophisticated operations all over the United States. Many of the fences ship them overseas, where the phones can be more valuable because the way they structure sales is different. In Hong Kong, for example, a smartphone can go for $2,000. So this is extremely profitable at all levels of the criminal enterprise that has grown up around this particular product. Last June, George Gascon, the San Francisco District Attorney, and I and some others, and we had folks from the NYPD, and we had Richard Aborn there, and we had Mr. Boken and Amy also. We had a summit. The manufacturers who represent 90% of the market came to the summit. We started the process of getting them to move forward on this. Since then, there has been progress, but we still have not gotten what we need to make everyone safe. What we need is a kill switch that enables you to clean the information off your phone and cancel it like a credit card once it's stolen. Very simple. That will remove the incentive for anyone to steal a smartphone. It has to be industry-wide, and it has to be something that can't be worked around through some clever software activity, so it has to be in the firmware or hardware. Now, we have two important reasons for being here with you today. We're proud to announce that Congressman Serrano has introduced legislation, the Smartphone Theft Prevention Act, which has already been introduced in the United States Senate, and that was reported on 2 weeks ago, sponsored by Senator Amy Klobuchar. He's introduced this act, which essentially will mandate what we're seeking to get the manufacturers to do voluntarily. It will make sure that if a phone is stolen, it can be rendered inoperative remotely, and that just removes the incentive for the crime wave. We will end the crime wave once that happens with the manufacturers. And we're also very proud to announce that Commissioner Bratton has agreed not just to join the Secure Our Smartphones initiative, but to take a leadership role. He is one of the most widely respected figures in law enforcement in America and beyond, and it is a tremendous boost to this effort to have him getting engaged, and I thank him for that. Working together we can get this done. We can end the crime wave. We can prevent more fathers and sisters from losing loved ones. And it's really a very simple but life-saving request. Some say that the reason for hesitancy is that the manufacturers make $30 billion replacing lost and stolen smartphones. That's data from the Federal Communications Commission. Whatever the reason, it's totally unacceptable. And we have been, the manufacturers have been moving since we convened them last June. We've had a breakthrough in Korea where there's something that is not exactly a law, but more like an order that people really have to follow, that they should be installing kill switches in the phones manufactured there. We've run into some issues with the carriers who provide the bandwidth for this, so the mobile services, because they sell insurance to you for your smartphone. But we're breaking through with them too. And I will tell you that this is something that since last June has produced results. Apple, to their credit, has installed an activation lock. It's still not really a solution to the problem, but it's a step. Samsung has come forward and said they are prepared to do more. And I have to applaud Congressman Serrano and Senator Klobuchar for their leadership in introducing federal legislation. The Smartphone Theft Prevention Act represents a major step in our campaign, and we will do whatever we can to help the congressman and the senator move that bill through Congress. Since we started the coalition, we have more than 100 law enforcement officials, district attorneys, public safety advocates, and mayors from around the country and around the world, including New York's own Mayor Bill de Blasio. And it is, again, a great benefit to us to have Commissioner Bratton throwing his substantial, weight, but adding his substantial energy and wisdom to the cause. And just a moment en español. El robo de teléfonos es una epidemia violenta. Hay gente que ha perdido la vida por un teléfono. Con esta ley podemos detener esa ola de crimen y traer paz a nuestras familias. Which essentially means phone theft is a violent epidemic. There are people who have lost their lives for a phone. This law can stop the crime wave and ensure the peace and safety of our families. It's the right thing to do. It has to be done. And now I'd like to introduce the sponsor of national legislation that would make this a requirement for all smartphone manufacturers, Congressman José Serrano.
Thank you so much, and thank you to you for your leadership on this, on introducing us to the issue at the congressional level. And thank you, Commissioner Bratton. Your men and women have the figures, know the numbers, know what happens on a daily basis. There have been in the past ways that you could lose a BlackBerry. Let's see, the BlackBerry is in this pocket, and the iPhone is in this pocket. And you can wipe out the BlackBerry. But what happens with most of these, as the AG has stated, is the fact that then you could take it somewhere else and restart the phone again. Or, as has been stated, it goes overseas and it's become a huge black market where people then can start the phone again. What the kill switch would do, and it's the best word we could come up with, not the greatest word, but the kill switch will do is it will render the phone inoperable. The phone will not be able to be started anywhere else. So then you have to think, why would you steal an iPhone? Why would you steal a smartphone? And we call them smartphones because we could do so many things with it, yet we haven't been smart enough to bring it to that point where they can't be used by someone that steals them. The approach that the Attorney General has put forth, I think, is a good one, to continue to talk, continue dialogue, to see if folks do this on their own. But if they don't do it on their own, then we need legislation that will mandate that they do it. Now, the commissioner will speak to this, but for instance, in my congressional district in the South Bronx, we have police officers telling us that as much as 30% of all crime now in my congressional district is based on the stealing of smartphones. So it's become an epidemic that has to be dealt with. I want to thank everyone who is here today. I especially thank you folks because you lost a member of your family who was having the phone stolen, and that's just something that we have to keep in mind at all times, that there have been people hurt, there have been people killed, there have been people maimed because of the stealing of this. Now, what happens is that every time we move into a new area, we have people who find a new way of creating a crime. And so we are now in the era of cyber attack. We're in the era of stealing of smartphones. We have to respond to that. We're responding to cyber attacks in many ways, and we're responding today in this way. I thank my colleague in the Senate for introducing the bill, and I think it speaks to a new day where manufacturers have to understand that this is not only about sales. This can not only be about profits. This is about bringing crime down, and this is about making sure people don't lose their lives and don't get hurt. That's why I'm here today. That's why I've introduced the legislation. That's why I applaud the efforts of our police commissioner, and especially the efforts of our attorney general, a longtime friend, who saw through the issue and has presented it at a federal level. En el día de hoy estamos introduciendo y anunciando legislación que permite que cuando una persona pierde o le roban el teléfono, lo que hoy en día se llama un teléfono inteligente, que hay la forma de técnicamente matar ese teléfono, que no se puede usar jamás. Porque lo que sucede ahora es que hay formas de impedir el uso de ese teléfono localmente, pero después se lo llevan a otro país, lo venden a un precio alto y lo abren de nuevo, lo instalan de nuevo y pueden usarlo. Esto mandaría a crear un sistema donde el teléfono ya no tiene valor para robarse, pierde ese valor. Y aquí tenemos personas, una familia que perdió a su hija durante un robo de estos teléfonos. Así que estamos pidiendo en la legislación que los dueños de las compañías que hacen los teléfonos y los que dan el servicio del teléfono permitan esta legislación que va a no permitir que esto siga sucediendo. Por último, es una epidemia, como dijo el Attorney General, Richard Schneiderman. En mi distrito congresional, algunas de las policías dicen que el 30% de los crímenes hoy en día están relacionados con el robo de estos teléfonos. Así que este es un día importante, una legislación importante, y esperamos que si las compañías no lo hacen por su cuenta, entonces el Congreso le eche la fuerza. And lastly, we just started collecting co-sponsors, and the response has been very good, and we expect, Mr. Attorney General, to have a very significant number of co-sponsors to announce to you soon. But it's an issue that's easy to explain to people because it's happening throughout the nation. Sometimes you have to dialogue a long time with a member of Congress to explain what the issue is. This one's an easy one because there isn't a community in this country that is not feeling some effect from this issue. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce someone who I've admired for quite a long time, and the people of the city of New York are truly grateful that we have one of the most talented, innovative, and energetic police commissioners in the history of the city and in the United States of America. And I'm proud to be working with him on this and on many other matters. Bill Bratton.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Congressman. New Yorkers may remember in the 1990s the ubiquitous sound of car alarms. The idea that in the middle of the night, window would be broken and that alarm would go off, oftentimes attempting to steal the radio in the car or attempting to steal the car. In the early 1990s, when I first came to New York, car thefts were over 100,000 every year in New York and growing, and the theft of radios from cars was also in the tens of thousands and growing. You don't hear those car alarms too often anymore in New York City. And one of the reasons why is car thefts have been reduced from over 100,000 to this year to record lows, less than 10,000. And the theft of radios from cars has just about stopped. Why? Manufacturers basically took care of the problem. They created radios that if they were stolen out of the vehicle, they would be disabled when they were disconnected from the vehicle. So to steal them, no profit to the thief. Similarly, car theft. The car theft situation was resolved in a number of ways through different types of systems where we could track the vehicle, or, most importantly, the key fob, the key that had that little electronic chip that you could not break into the car and start it unless you had the actual key to that car. That response by the manufacturers was in large part due to both police and public pressure. And it worked. In the city of New York, just think of it, 90,000 fewer stolen vehicles and a huge cost. This problem has many of the same elements. The term Save Our Smartphones, the acronym S.O.S, is very appropriate for this issue. We need to be rescued. And the solution is not political leadership. The solution is not police leadership. The solution ultimately is not community leadership. The solution is quite simply leadership on the part of the manufacturers, the carriers and the manufacturers of these phones. Let's be quite clear about this. The elephant in the room is once again all about corporate greed. Profit. That's what this is all about. They're making 30, 40, maybe $50 billion a year on the new phone sales, all the apps that have to be recreated. They're making a fortune on this, and they don't want to lose it. Well, shame on them. We learned long ago in policing that we function better when we focus on the prevention of crime rather than trying to find ways to respond to it. Right now, we are forced, police, government leaders, trying to find ways to respond to the largest growing crime problem in America, theft of these phones. And we will continue to build better mousetraps, if you will. I'm about to launch a major initiative that's going to tie up hundreds of New York City police officers responding to this problem. Those cops can be much better used dealing with other types of crime if the manufacturers and the carriers just do what they should do. Do it because it's the right thing to do. And they refuse to do that. So here we have these press conferences demanding that they do something about helping the American public, American law enforcement, American police, political leadership to prevent crime rather than trying to find ways to respond it. They did it once before in the 90s. They can do it now in the 21st century. The corporate greed that is driving this problem has to come to an end. And shame on any of the political leadership in Washington or elsewhere that doesn't respond to the demand of the American public who are afflicted by this crime, by this disease, if you will, as they listen to lobbyists down there, high-priced lobbyists that have 50 reasons why, no, we can't do this, we can't do that, there's privacy issues. I'm sorry. There's a quick fix to this. Let's get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And now I'd like to introduce someone whose courage is really an example for us all and for all of the folks who are cynical about human conduct. The Boken family has taken their own pain and not retreated, as many people would do, but are providing leadership nationally in this effort to prevent crimes from happening like the crime that happened to Megan. And I am honored to introduce Paul Boken.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Paul Boken, and I'm here to support this legislation. This is personal to me because I lost my daughter Megan to smartphone theft. Megan was murdered 18 months ago when two young men tried to steal her smartphone. Megan was getting in her car in the middle of the day in a residential area of St. Louis when this happened. She was targeted because she was talking on her smartphone. At the time, she was talking to her mother, just checking in when she was away for the weekend. The number of Americans that are victims of this crime is shocking. The thefts are happening because there's an active and lucrative market for stolen cell phones. I can think of no other situation where a person can take someone from someone else and turn it into cash faster than with a stolen smartphone. This market needs to be shut down. This legislation, if passed, will be a big step towards shutting down the stolen cell phone market. I want to thank Congressman Serrano for his leadership on this public safety issue. I'm sure your constituents appreciate that you're taking action to protect them and others. I also want to thank Attorney General Schneiderman and San Francisco District Attorney Gascon, who was here back last May and June when we were starting this process. They've been working on this issue for a long time. I also want to thank the New York City Police Chief, Mr. Bratton, and Mr. Ahern on the Crime Commission for their involvement in this issue. It's very important that people understand that what happened to Megan can happen to anyone watching this right now. It's not isolated, and it's happening where people are getting hurt when their cell phones are stolen, and it needs to be ended. I also urge the representatives to pay attention to the facts, which Mr. Bratton spoke about. In New York, 40% of the crime is cell phone crime. When I was in San Francisco a few weeks ago, in the city of San Francisco, 2/3 of the crime relates to these devices. And in Oakland, 80% of the crime relates to these stolen cell phones. These are facts that the police in all the major cities across our countries know about and have been talking about for some time. My daughter was 23 years old when she was shot. Megan was incredibly accomplished. She was a college athlete and a good student. She was a leader. She was a focused, tireless competitor on the volleyball court, and she had a heart of gold. Megan had all the traits of a person who was going to be someone someday. And I hope she was an innocent victim of the stolen cell phone market. I hope that this is a first step in shutting down this market to protect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Paul's daughter and Amy's sister, Annie Palazzolo.
My father and I are here today because we're committed to stopping the growing trend of smartphone theft. I think everyone here today has either been a victim of this crime or knows someone who has. You've heard the familiar stories about cell phones snatched on the subway or from a table at a restaurant. For most people, the story ends with a trip to the local precinct to fill out a police report, followed by an expensive trip to the cell phone store for a replacement. My sister Megan Boken was also a victim of smartphone theft, but she paid the ultimate price. Because someone wanted to steal her brand new iPhone, Megan lost her life at age 23. My sister Megan lived a very full life, and she had so many great things ahead of her. She played volleyball for the Billikens at St. Louis University, where she was a 4-year starter and a leader on her team, serving as the team captain her senior year. Megan was very hardworking and a fierce competitor, but you might not guess it upon first meeting her. She had a sweet, fun-loving disposition that charmed everyone she met. Megan had a lot of personality, which naturally spilled over into the digital world. Even though Megan and I lived in different cities, she in Chicago and myself here in New York, we were in constant contact thanks to our cell phones. She often texted me pictures of random things she saw that she thought were funny, like obnoxious vanity license plates or kids' sidewalk chalk drawings that she passed while she was walking. She was always the first person to call me on my birthday. She was also a pioneer of taking selfies. She loved surprising her friends with incredibly awkward or goofy pictures of herself that were guaranteed to make you laugh. Megan was the kind of person you could always count on to brighten your day. When Megan was killed for her phone, she was doing something that all of us probably do on a daily basis. She was walking down the street and talking on her phone at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We rely on our smartphones to keep us in constant contact with friends, family, and coworkers, no matter where we are or what we're doing. Everyone knows that feeling of shock when you leave the house and realize that you forgot your phone. It seems impossible to survive without it. But the same device that makes us feel secure and connected also makes us a target for thieves, and this device cost Megan her life. As a New York City resident, where smartphone thefts account for more than 20% of all robberies, I'm acutely aware of how widespread this problem has become. I take the subway to commute to work and get from place to place, which is where the majority of smartphone thefts occur. I try to avoid using my phone while I'm on the go, even though that's exactly what these devices are designed for. If you use your smartphone in public, even just to send a quick text message, not only are you tempting thieves with a device that can be turned into hundreds of dollars of cash overnight, but you're not paying attention to your surroundings. In short, you're an ideal target for thieves. It's time for companies to implement the kill switch technology that will make stolen smartphones worthless and shut down the lucrative black market for stolen phones. It's too late for my sister Megan, but I hope that by sharing her story, I can prevent someone else from becoming a victim.
Thank you, Annie. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to the leader of the Citizens Crime Commission, one of the most respected and innovative groups working in the area of law enforcement, a great ally, Richard Aborn.
Thank you so much. I just want to make 2 points in wrapping up this press conference, 2 points which I think should be self-evident. First, I do want to thank the Attorney General for doing what he does so often, which is recognizing the issue and stepping out and starting to drive us towards a resolution. And to the Congressman for introducing this bill. It's regretful that we have to be at this stage, but that's necessary. And of course to Commissioner Bratton, who when he lends his voice to something, trust me, I know it's going to happen. That all three of them are relentless. We will get this done. And to Paul and Annie, how sad it is that you had to go through that tragedy, that loss, and how sad it is they have to be in front of us repeatedly. They're doing this not just in New York, but throughout the country, talking about this issue. You know, there's a maxim in government, and one of the maxims is that with power comes responsibility. The last time we appeared before you, we were adjourning to a meeting with the manufacturers to discuss this issue and hope that in a cooperative way they would understand the severity of it and they would exercise the power that they have in order to ameliorate quickly this issue. They have the power to do that. To date, they by and large have chosen not to. The other thing that may seem a tad counterintuitive is something Commissioner Bratton talks about all the time, and that is the importance of community policing. Now, why do I say community policing? Because policing officials will tell you there's nothing more powerful than a good relationship with the community and the police to fight crime. But all too often we think about community policing as a small geographic or neighborhood concept. Well, we live in a larger community, and the manufacturers are very much a part of that community, and they have an obligation to come forward and help with this problem. They have the power to do it. They have the responsibility to do it. They have the obligation to do it. There should never be another death. There should never be another crime when it'd be so easy to resolve this issue. So it's a shame that we now have to go to legislation. It's a shame that we have to keep mounting the pressure in this way. The best resolution of this legislative effort would be for it not to have to happen. And how would that occur? For the manufacturers to come forward, get this job done, and let everybody get on to other issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all, and especially the Boken family for all of your work, as Richard said, not just here, but around the country. And Damien will take some on-topic questions.
Yeah, I can see a situation where maybe somebody doesn't want to push that kill switch because they're hoping to retrieve their phone.
This is something that has been raised. You know, this is not a situation where there is zero cost, but the alternative is unthinkable. And again, the Federal Communications Commission is telling us that about a third of the crime in the country now relates to this. And I'll tell you, I will, if my smartphone is gone, after looking around for it for a little bit, same with I'll treat it the same way I'll treat a credit card. You know, I mean, I don't hesitate to cancel my credit card if I can't find it. And this is the path that the overwhelming majority of smartphone users will take. Yes, Commissioner.
Much the same as there's a quick fix to disable these phones very quickly. They can just as quickly be re-energized, if you will. Coding, etc. I've had 2 occasions in my previous employment where I managed to lose my BlackBerry. One instance, I never got it back, and literally within a short period of time, corporate responsibility, we wiped it clean. Second time, I in fact recovered the phone about an hour later after we had wiped it clean. Able to load it right up very, very quickly also. So this technology is available now. It's not rocket science. So some of the excuse about no, this in fact can happen as easily as they can wipe it clean. They can basically reload it again. It can be revived, exactly.
How do you plan to leverage this legislation? Is there anything that's included in it that will punish the companies and the manufacturers
Well,
that don't comply?
the Congressman can speak to that, but it does empower the FCC to enforce the law.
Exactly. It empowers the FCC to enforce the law, and I intend, when the FCC comes before my committee, to make this one of the top subjects. I am the top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee that oversees the FCC, and one of my agenda items is to discuss with them prior and at that time publicly the fact that they can be supportive of the legislation and also, once the legislation becomes law, to enforce it. And that's the empowerment there. But still at the bottom of this is the fact that this can be resolved even before a vote. I mean, everybody would love a pen set to put on their wall saying, I passed that law. But they have the technology now to do it. They can do it. The whole idea is to make sure, and I do this with all due respect to sort of clarify what the commissioner said, to make sure that you can't take it overseas, for instance, where there's a black market for it, and then all of a sudden revive the phone. No, this would be something that you, yourself, with your carrier, wants to accomplish, not a third party.
So I'm a little confused, like, if there's a fail-safe to the kill switch, as Commissioner Bratton said, couldn't it be argued that these thieves could eventually figure out a way to bypass this kill switch?
No, this is something that the manufacturers are looking at. We have been actively engaged with them since last June. So this is not a situation where they're not responding. They've responded really to everything, and then some of them have taken steps towards developing the technology. They've conceded that they can install kill switches that can be revived only on a very limited basis, or they can't be revived at all. That's something that the manufacturers are working on. It may not be the same exact technical solution, but the requirements are the same. This is not something that the manufacturers are contending ever that they cannot do as a technical matter.
What about the concern that the manufacturers have raised about being able to hack into the kill switches and therefore potentially disable large groups of customers' cell phones?
They're in the business of figuring out how to defeat that. Basically, that's the business they're in. That these are some of the smartest people in the world. So, as in all cases involving cybersecurity issues, the idea is to try and stay one step ahead of those type efforts. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that they can't figure out, since they already have thought up the problem, how to resolve the problem. And then if somebody figures out how to basically deal with their solution, well, you come up with a new solution. That's the way technology works. That's the way it evolves. But they could save so many lives. They could save so much property loss. They could save so much aggravation by just doing this now, and then address those issues as they occur farther down the line. All of that stuff that the lobbyists are pushing out, it's all about every month that goes by, they save a couple billion more dollars. Every year that goes by, they save another 30 or 40 billion dollars that goes basically into their coffers and is taken away from the pockets of, well, not just Americans, but all over the world.
Another Congressman.
Just very briefly, that's the point, that my experience in Congress and in the Assembly before that is that the first comment you hear from corporate America is, well, we can't do that. Yes, they can. These are the folks that gave us FaceTime. These are the folks that allow me to play dominoes on this, okay? These are the folks that took 32 binders that I would have to have every year, binders, Mr. Attorney General, this big, with information on appropriations, and those binders are in here with taking up very little space. So they can do it, they just have to want to do it.
And as I noted before, while the lobbyists are saying one thing, we've been engaged with the people who actually are in charge of the technology, the people who are in charge of trying to solve the problem. There has never been an assertion that there is a technical barrier to getting a viable kill switch installed. It's all about other issues.
For the police commissioner, can you describe what kind of advocacy or outreach you're going to do to help this issue? Are you going to go to Washington? Are you going to...
Well, every month when I report my crime stats and show that increasingly as other crimes are going down in the city, this crime continues to potentially increase. That's going to be part of the advocacy on my part. So I'll have that opportunity every month. I will be very actively engaged, as Mayor de Blasio will be. He feels very strongly in this issue also, that in whatever assistance we can give, testifying before Congress or wherever, meetings with the manufacturers, meetings with my colleagues on the major city chiefs, as well as the International Association Chiefs of Police. This is a worldwide problem, and the shame of it is that it can be fixed so easily, and they can still make billions of dollars to keep their shareholders happy.
Commissioner Bratton, I would like to take the opportunity to ask you a question. I want to be outside of the topic a little bit, but if you
No, let's come back.
There'll be an opportunity after we get off topic.
Can you talk about all the manpower hours more in detail? How many officers spend how much time trying to solve these cases, investigate these cases? And can you also give
we're in the process of creating an entity within the NYPD as part of the reorganizational department. You put cops where the problems are. Right now, this is a major problem, so we're going to have to put more resources into this problem and to deal with the growth of it. But we're responding after the fact, when it's so much easier to just prevent it in the first place. So that's a cost. But the real cost is to those millions of people who every day have to take a day off from work to traipse down to the phone store and basically upset their lives and basically buy new phones, load up all the apps, if you can remember all the apps that you have, or in the, unfortunately, most tragic circumstances, instead of going to a phone store, they're unfortunately going to a morgue, as this poor family has had to deal with. And that is a certain issue that we need to be very mindful of. This is not just the idea of a theft. The injuries that are caused by this increasing around the country also.
Last fall, Apple introduced an activation lock, which is similar to what you're asking for, although I understand it may fall somewhat short. Can you tell me, does that make a dent in crime patterns? Have you seen a change?
The activation lock is an opt-in, not an opt-out. So thieves are not going to stop stealing smartphones until they know that the smartphones are all worthless. And we are pleased that Apple has done this. They continue to talk with us about broadening the solution. And as I said, Samsung has come forward with even a more aggressive idea. We will. There's no technical barrier, and I do think they will have to do this eventually. I just urge them not to let more time go by when more people are victims of robberies, more people are victims of assault. It's because of a problem you can fix today and are declining to fix.
Let me speak to that question, sir, again. Without trending, we saw after Apple introduced their latest phone, the 7 or whatever it is, that in fact we saw a migration to thefts of Samsung products for a period of time. But as the Attorney General points out, it's an opt-in rather than opt-out. So the thieves are still willing to take a chance, and in 3/4 of the thefts of Apple phones, if they get it into a place where they can sell it fast enough, they're going to be okay. So anything that basically is only 25% secure is not really secure at all.
Congressman Serrano, what will be the best case scenario for passage of this legislation? What kind of time frame are we looking at?
Well, we are now reaching out to other members of Congress. We have a Senate sponsor, and the process in Congress is to reach out to your colleagues, to get different groups to support your bill within the Congress. The advantage I think we have, notwithstanding the manufacturers' perhaps resistance, is that this is not an issue that takes time to explain. This is an issue that every member of Congress has heard about in their district, and that's the advantage that I have in this. A lot of times, and I'm not making a comment about how smart or not smart we are, but a lot of times we have to explain an issue to other colleagues that you understand, others do not. It takes time. Not this one. This one, everybody understands. Everyone's had reports in their office. It's just a matter, do they want to sign on? And we're beginning to get a good number of people signing up.
So you're talking time-wise, like a year, like 2 years?
No, the idea would be to try to do it as soon as we can, to call attention to it. You know, Congress right now has issues before it, but, you know, it's not doing a million things. So this would be a good thing to do. And maybe this is the bipartisanship that we've been looking for.
I do want to say that this is a bipartisan issue, and when we gathered attorneys general to write a letter to the manufacturers, we had 31. We had Republicans and Democrats sign on to the letter, and it does make a big difference to have Congress members reaching out to Congress members, respected police officials reaching out to other police officials, and for Mayor de Blasio to call this to the attention of other mayors. So our coalition grows, the pressure grows, and this is truly a bipartisan issue, because if you, whatever your party, if people in your district are being victimized by smartphone thefts, robberies, and assaults, you have to think very carefully about signing on to this bill, and I think a lot of people will.
For older smartphone models, is this something that can be installed retroactively, or is this something that's only going to come with a new generation?
I mean, the initial goal was to ensure that anything that is manufactured going forward is protected, has a kill switch. It is more complicated to install it retroactively. It can be done in some cases, But the objective primarily is to remove the incentive for thieves to steal the phones. And once you take away all the phones going forward, at a certain point in time, the thieves they're not going to be trying to figure out what generation of phone you have if most of the phones are just worthless.
Also, if I may, very briefly, that's a great question because it merits the answer that the Attorney General gave you. However, there's something else, and that is, as you know, every time a new phone comes out, there are lines around the store to get it, even if they have the latest. I mean, I got the Mini, and the number 3, the new one, they didn't call it 3, was not much different than the Mini except the size, but I had to have the Mini. And so going forward, it's not like two people are gonna buy a new phone. It'll be millions of people, and then the technology should be there.
Congressman, you said that this could be an FCC issue. What if these companies, are they penalized or fined by the FCC if they don't comply? And do you think they might feel they're better off paying a fine and doing what they're doing so they fall from
Only the Yankees do that when they go above their budget. Most people don't like to be singled out for fines and enforcement. So I think the FCC could play a major role. And I'm a Yankee fan, by the way. I'm not knocking the Yankees.
I can confirm that he is, in fact, a Yankee fan. Let me also say that as soon as one manufacturer or two manufacturers have the courage to install kill switches, and a few carriers go along with that, I think you will see a migration to those phones, and I think everyone else will have to follow suit. So what we're looking for are the initial manufacturers. The first to do this will have a competitive advantage, and we urge them to take action as quickly as possible.
Do one or two more on topic and then off topic, sir.
So the Commissioner, the Attorney General, you spoke about how profits might be a motivating factor behind the delay in this case. Can you just talk a little bit more about how you came to that conclusion and just why you're so confident in that kind of assertion?
Well, the statistics come from the federal government. I mean, we know how much money they're making on lost and stolen smartphones. I used profits. The commissioner, please note that it was the commissioner who said corporate greed and not me. I do use the term corporate greed on occasion.
I don't have to go for votes.
But look, you would be pretty foolish not to consider this as a factor. And then when we got one manufacturer attempting to take a more aggressive posture and got pushback from the carriers, you would be foolish not to take into account the fact that the carriers get people to pay insurance regularly for the phones, and they would lose that stream of revenue. This is, I think the analogy to the automobile industry is right on. This is something that can be done, and as soon as one or two start to do it, everyone will have to do it.
The idea of profit as a motivation, in a democracy that we're so privileged to live in, the corporations have a responsibility certainly to their shareholders. They're in business to make money. But they also have a moral obligation to the society that allows them to make money, and to the members of that society, whether customers or otherwise. And I would argue that this is a moral responsibility on the part of those companies, their board of directors, all good people who are certainly working hard to ensure that their investors get a good rate of return. But they also have an obligation to their customers. And the customers right now are not being served well by many of the actions of these companies. It's that simple. I've until recently served on several corporate boards, so I'm very mindful, if you will, of the multiplicity of obligations of those companies. I would argue at this time the moral obligation to their customers supersedes their profit motivation, particularly in light of the fact they can still make huge profits if they implement this. If I were one of these four major companies, I'd basically seek to take the leadership by advertising a phone that basically is theft-free, if you will. And that to me would be a marketing advantage, that my phone is better than their phones, because if it is stolen, I can basically get it back to you very, very quickly and ensure that your personal items on that phone are not being used inappropriately elsewhere. So again, that's why we just can't figure it out in the sense of, other than, can any of you come up with any reason other than they're making money off this? I can't.
And I think that what the commissioner is saying is a reason that while we're proceeding aggressively, because every week that goes by creates more victims. Sooner or later, they're going to have to do this. I mean, this is just something that is going to happen. The argument is so compelling, and the more public outcry there is, you're seeing in states and municipalities around the country, people drafting legislation. They do not want to be faced with a patchwork of laws relating to this. If federal law is passed, then the opportunity to show leadership and get a competitive advantage is gone. And the first manufacturer to install the kill switch, I'll go out and buy one of their phones and encourage other people to do so. I'm currently encouraging people to put their money in J.P. Morgan Chase because it was the first bank to do the right thing on that front. So this is a chance for leadership. We're looking for one company to step forward, and I think you will see that happen very soon.
Can I just comment briefly? Very briefly. Something that we mentioned here, I think it was 31 attorney generals. There are lobbyists and there are lobbyists in Washington. There are lobbyists who get paid to say no to things or yes to things, and then there are government lobbyists. There is a great response when an attorney general from your state calls you and tells you, I need you to do this. When a governor calls you and tells you, I need you to do this. When a police commissioner from your city calls you and comes and briefs you. People react to that. People respond to that because we know that those are the folks that are on the ground on a daily basis knowing things that we don't necessarily know. And so don't take lightly the fact that 31 attorney generals signed the letter. That's very serious.
Commissioner Bratton, I would like to take this opportunity now that I have the go-ahead. You introduced last week this initiative to allow the police officers to establish a more close relationship with the community. There's a major concern, especially in the Hispanic community, after several incidents. One in May where a mother was killed with his two daughters when she was lost in translation because they didn't translate the complaint that she was being physically, she was a victim of domestic abuse. And there's actually a lawsuit that has been filed in federal court in New York City by 6 other women that are being represented because of the same situation, that their complaints were no translators, the lack of translators in the police department. I wonder, a police department that prides itself on having 25% of the force that speaks Spanish and is one of the most diverse in the country. Why is this happening, and how are you planning? What are you going to do to correct this situation?
We've already moved very quickly after that problem was identified. Unfortunately, the unfortunate circumstances that you related to put into place, one, re-emphasizing procedures that were already in place, that we have, as you indicated, quite a few personnel that speak different languages in this very multi-ethnic, multicultural city. But we also have access to services that can provide translation capabilities to us very quickly. So part of it is the re-education of those systems we already have, as well as making our officers aware of other systems and when they can use them, whether in the field versus in the precinct station house. So those directives have already been in process of moving out, particularly to our patrol officers, who are usually the first personnel to encounter the victims of, in the cases they're talking about, domestic violence.
Is there any system?
We got one last question. Anyone else have a question right there?
Commissioner, what's the condition of the detective that was struck by an ATV yesterday in Brooklyn?
A lot of pain and discomfort. I visited him and his wife in the hospital last night over in the 7-5 precinct, and he's very lucky to be alive, being quite frank with you, that when we actually arrest the suspect that was involved in that we undoubtedly, hopefully with the district attorney's cooperation, be charged him with attempted murder, because there was a overt attempt to murder that officer by swerving into traffic and attempting to basically get that officer off that ATV. He had broken nose, a lot of, as you might appreciate, scrapes. There was a concern about an ankle that was requiring a lot of activity last night on the part of orthopedic specialists. So I'll be talking with him again later this afternoon. Last night he was in good spirits, his colleagues, but he was in a lot of pain.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.